time, just a couple of housekeeping details. All of the lines, all the folks on the phone will be muted, but you can certainly submit questions through the GoToWebinar toolbar. As we get questions, we'll try to address them as we go. If there are questions at the end that we haven't got to, we do have some time for Q&A at the end. So today we're just going to focus on customers who are leveraging QuickBooks and being able to extend that from really the whole order management process, orders coming in, streamlining those orders in the warehouse, and automating the shipping. Today's agenda, a quick introduction, welcome in terms of OzLINK and Oz development. And then we'll go through customer scenarios around that QuickBooks automation, different workflows. We tend to use a lot of customer scenarios, so hopefully those can apply to yourselves or also to some customers. If I know there's some UPS folks on the phone as well, so if there's customer scenarios that they can relate to these, hopefully that'll be helpful to help solve a problem for those folks. We will give a demo of the solution showing integration from Magento through to QuickBooks and processing that shipment, sort of a closed loop process, and then we'll finish up with a summary and any questions that we don't get to. So in terms of OzLINK and Oz development, the company's Oz development, we've been around over 12 years, and we've been involved in warehouse and shipping the management team for over 20 years. We're working very closely with UPS during that span, and really building out a large set of customers. We have over 400 QuickBooks customers. Recently, we won a number of awards in the supply chain space. The Pacesetters Awards for a fast-growing company. A couple of supply chain magazines have recognized our success with customers, which again, we feel honored to be able to drive value in those customer scenarios and create rapid payback in streamlining their warehouse, their operations. And then finally, we're a gold partner with QuickBooks, so we have a lot of experience in working and extending QuickBooks. And in terms of the areas where OzLINK extends QuickBooks, it really comes down to three functional areas within a company. There's at the front end, as e-commerce, as companies are expanding their e-commerce channels, putting up their own e-commerce platform and e-commerce site, maybe also selling through marketplaces like an Amazon or an eBay, what have you, incorporating those into that order management process with QuickBooks. And then in the warehouse, second area, streamlining things like batch processing, creating pick tickets, master pick tickets, pack validations, those sort of things. And then the third area is around shipping, streamlining the shipping process, making sure that the right UPS service is used for that particular shipment, business rules, those sort of things. So, and OzLINK is really used as an extension of QuickBooks as sort of that core application where the order is going to flow through, potentially where the inventory is held, but depending on the customer scenario, different customers use QuickBooks in different ways, and we'll step through some of that as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have a tremendous history and success working with QuickBooks customers. We have over 400. Here are some examples of customers that we've worked with. One example on the left in the e-commerce side is Plas Meats. They are a traditional retailer of gourmet smoked pork and hams and those sort of things, and they launched an e-commerce site. And one of the sort of streamlined optimization is, as their e-commerce expanded, they also have some retail stores as well. They really needed to ensure that those deliveries were timed appropriately based on some time in transit. They didn't spoil. So we do some time in transit analysis to integrate those e-commerce orders into their normal fulfillment and get those goods depending when those orders are going out. So they ship out on Mondays, depending on the destination, whether it's West Coast, East Coast, further away from their Midwest location, it would go more expedited so that it gets there before the weekend. It's not sitting in a UPS truck over the weekend and getting spoiled. So those are some rules we do with Plas. Killer Motorsports, the bottom left, another example. They do a fair bit of their suppliers. They have motorcycle add-ons and supplies. They have a lot of supplier drop ship, so those orders come in from their Magento website. We create some branded pack slip and label, and that gets sent off to the supplier to be able to fulfill. So that whole supplier process gets streamlined. Within QuickBooks, a sales order gets created, completely automated, and allows their customer sales folks and customer account team to focus more on providing that customer care, upselling, and taking care of customers' value-added tasks. Here's another example of a customer with QuickBooks. In this case, they have QuickBooks Point of Sale. They have a retail store. They expanded their e-commerce channel with ProStores, which is owned by eBay, as their e-commerce platform. And they really need to integrate those orders into their normal QuickBooks fulfillment. So for QuickBooks POS that was used for their stores, the orders would go into it, they'd fulfill those orders. But for the ProStores orders, they were spending, one of the operations guys was spending a lot of his Sundays sort of downloading the orders from ProStores, typing them into QuickBooks. Subsequently, when they went to ship, they had to retype those things sometimes into WorldShip, and more importantly, update that tracking number back into ProStores for the customer scenario. And their e-commerce channel was growing. It was the fastest growing channel they had. So if you have 125 orders per day, taking 7 to 8 hours of sort of clerical time, not really that's really not value-added time serving the customer as effectively as he could. So the OzLINK solution in this case imports those orders in a batch process into QuickBooks Point of Sale, POS. They then ship those items one at a time off. It's not a batch ship scenario. It's a single ship item scenario. And those e-commerce orders can get mixed in with some of any other orders that they're processing in the back of the warehouse. And as those orders get shipped out, ProStores gets updated with that tracking number, and the cost and tracking number get put back into QuickBooks. So it dramatically improved their process, the accuracy, the manual typing, eliminated all those errors, and really dramatically cut down on the time they spent. So the operations manager freed up his Sunday and now spends just a few minutes running the OzLINK process.
Brian, this is Jason. I have a question here about accessorial fees and how this particular implementation affected that.
Yeah, so with accessorials, there's a couple of options that we can do as well. So for example, address correction fees. With QuickBooks, we can do a batch process. We call it pre-ship batch address validation. And in that case, as we're taking orders from ProStores and putting it into QuickBooks, whether that's QuickBooks Point of Sale or Enterprise or Pro, we can then run a process, leverage the UPS API for address validation, and highlight this address is valid versus this address is ambiguous. We set that flag in a user-defined field with QuickBooks. Now the customer can, instead of having to check each order, they simply run a report on those orders with ambiguous addresses right in QuickBooks. They can correct it right in QuickBooks, and they can release those orders to the warehouse. So dramatically can streamline those sort of processes. In terms of the overall solutions with integrating e-commerce, there's a broad set of e-commerce applications that OzLINK can and has integrated into QuickBooks. This is some examples of the applications. Magento certainly is probably one of the most common we see. We're seeing a growing demand for Amazon as well as eBay. And it seems that there's, every time we turn around, there's potentially a new shopping cart or a new application just because it's such a high growth area. And then it's leveraging a lot of the newer services from UPS, whether it's lower, lighter weight things for things like Mail Innovations or SurePost, and being able to streamline and automate the selection of those services can create big opportunities for customers who are starting to sell online and provide some cost-effective shipping, which is one of the key elements in sort of completing that purchase in the shopping cart. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of the add-ons that we can do as we're integrating those orders from the e-commerce application into QuickBooks I talked about address validation. A couple other examples are order routing. So if the customer has a number of locations and they're keeping their inventory in QuickBooks, one of the things we do is look at maybe there's a West Coast warehouse and an East Coast warehouse. This customer is in California and there's inventory. Let's route that order from the West Coast warehouse to leverage that inventory, have a faster time to deliver to that customer, and a lower cost of shipping. The supplier fulfillment scenario, that's the Killer Motorsports I talked about earlier. Another common one is, again, trying to get customers more managed by exception. So order screening, looking at orders over a certain dollar value. We have a customer that actually run, in this case, NetSuite. They look at orders that, as they come in, they want to flag any order that is an international destination and a dollar value of over $1,000. They want to flag that for approval. So some basic screening, we can highlight that order in QuickBooks as needing approval or review. Meanwhile, the rest of the orders which fall outside of that automatically flow through the warehouse, and the fulfillment process is streamlined. So now, from a management approval standpoint, it's simply focusing on those exceptions as opposed to running a report, finding which ones need review and further work. It's really more managed by exception type process. Again, freeing up people to focus on the most valuable set of orders that need their attention, and driving the others through the fulfillment process.
All right, Brian, we have a few questions here. One, are you familiar with eCommerce?
I don't know if we've done an integration with eCommerce. It's quite common that we'll come across a shopping cart that we haven't seen, and we'll talk to the provider. They may have a web service that we can call to pull that order. There's a couple of other options that we can do to pull that order into either QuickBooks or into WorldShip. But certainly that's, as I said earlier, it seems that every time we turn around there's a new potential provider that we can integrate to.
We have another question. Can QuickBooks be used with ConnectShip?
That's a good question, and I'd say 6 to 12 months ago, I would have thought that those, kind of like Sesame Street, which of these moves don't match, just because ConnectShip typically is for a very large volume, shippers, high orders per day, and QuickBooks is typically small, medium. We are actually implementing a customer right now that's using ConnectShip. Their requirements are fairly sophisticated on the shipping side, and they are leveraging QuickBooks. So we've seen more of that in the last 6 months. And I think a lot of that is due to the e-commerce growth. They're adding more channels, shipping through marketplaces like Amazon, eBay. Groupon's another example that's building on a marketplace, and Staples, where customers, these suppliers have more opportunities to sell through well-established marketplaces. But the downside is their warehouse and their shipping requirements get more complex. Billing, third-party billing, branded pack slips, those things. So that's where ConnectShip can really provide a lot of value, and they're leveraging QuickBooks for its core accounting capabilities.
Great questions, everybody.
This is another example, and a great company that we work with, Image 3D. They provide, you send your pictures and they create the 3D slideshows with the viewers. So they sell the viewers as well as creating the slideshows for you from your pictures. And they, again, traditional company, really successful in this sort of 3D world. I spoke to the owner, and he goes to 3D conferences, which is, every industry seems to have a boutique set of conferences, which is interesting, and a lot of fans, he said. And a lot of them were consumers. Most of his business was wholesale through retail stores. So he opened up an e-commerce channel again for that consumer sector with Magento, and it was growing dramatically. And initially, since it was a sort of an experiment, he hadn't automated, hadn't integrated. But as it grew and was taking sort of a bigger share of his revenue, it was also taking a decent chunk of time just from a clerical. It was taking the orders out of Magento, typing them into WorldShip, typing the tracking number back into Magento, and we automated that process. And this is what we call a sort of straight scan and ship. the orders don't go in one-on-one to QuickBooks. So QuickBooks really isn't part of the order management process. It's simply a Magento to WorldShip type integration. Sometimes customers do this, especially if they have a large e-commerce channel, a growing channel. They may have started on the web, and QuickBooks, they might at the end of the day just update QuickBooks with a single invoice from an accounting standpoint that said, hey, my e-commerce channel sold 275 items and the total dollar amount was X, as opposed to putting each sales order into QuickBooks. But that's another scenario that we'll see and that we can support with QuickBooks. And then in terms of looking at the areas of automate shipping, I talked about some of the business rules, picking the right UPS service. So if I'm doing an e-commerce channel, leveraging things like SurePost, maybe packages under a certain weight should go SurePost, others maybe Mail Innovations. If it's residential or maybe if it's commercial, it's going to go ground. So setting up those rules, depending on the commodity, there may be rules like alcohol may need adult signature, maybe it's jewelry, you want some insurance. So being able to really streamline and automate and make sure that WorldShip or ConnectShip is set up with the right options for a particular customer scenario. And the way OzLINKs work, we can really set those rules on almost any shipment attribute, whether that's weight, dimension, value, consignee, those sort of things. And then leveraging all of the elements of UPS WorldShip, which typically will have the most advanced solution, UPS services available. So that some of those services from UPS, they'll typically get supported first in UPS WorldShip, and they get later supported in UPS APIs. And then finally, as I talked about earlier, customers with these broader sales channels often need requirements, whether it's a label, the UCC label we'll talk about and provide a customer scenario, or maybe it's a branded pack slip. As their sales channels expand through drop shipping, through e-commerce, being able to produce the right documents in an automated way becomes more important. So for example, if a customer is shipping on behalf, the customer I talked about earlier, shipping on behalf of Amazon as well as Overstock, being able to automatically produce those pack slips without the shipper having to remember and doing that. Just it's streamlined, they scan, ship, the documentation gets produced based on that specific order and that customer requirements, really can improve the efficiency, dramatically cut down on the errors. And then also during peak periods, really a lot more straightforward to bring on temporary staff for those peak periods. They don't have to remember that this type of order requires an Overstock branded pack slip, those sort of things. Really, they can focus on getting those packages out the door.
Brian, we have some questions. First one is the rating and TNT quoting functionality still accessible in these integrations like the off-the-shelf OzLINK solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are 4 different OzLINK solutions for UPS. There's 2 that are rating and time and transit type solutions, OzLINK for UPS, which is free, OzLINK for UPS Plus, which provides really a standalone solution that provides rating, which includes the time and transit across all the UPS services, can do address validation, as well as tracking and some batch capabilities with Excel. The solutions we're talking focused mostly on here with these case studies is OzLINK for UPS Custom, which is a WorldShip integration connecting into QuickBooks. There's advanced modules like looking at the example at Plath's Meats, looking at, hey, time and transit, comparing that to the destination and the amount of time that package could be on the road, cutting that down. Hey, it could go ground. It's ordered for sort of 2-day air, but it could go ground. Those sort of things are part of OzLINK Custom. There is a solution called OzLINK for UPS Pro, which is an out-of-the-box integration with QuickBooks. It provides, basically pulls the order from QuickBooks, you process it in WorldShip, and writes it back to QuickBooks. A very straightforward solution, can be activated right from the OzLINK website. But the more advanced modules, things like branded pack slips, time and transit, are really only available in OzLINK for UPS Custom.
And one last question, will this tech be available for customer-facing conversations?
Yeah, yeah. So sounds like that's from a UPS partner. Absolutely. These and we have some end customers on the webinar today as well. But certainly we'll post these slides. We typically post them on SlideShare, and it'll be available for use. And if you're one of the guys or partners, gals from UPS, certainly you can feel free to reach out, and we'll do a joint call, and we can leverage this content integrated with some of the UPS material as well. So one of the things we've seen a lot more demand for recently is the ability to do batch shipping with QuickBooks. And QuickBooks doesn't have a great way to sort of do batch. So what this does is the customer exports a file of orders that they want processed from QuickBooks, and it's simply the order numbers. That could be the invoice number, the sales receipt, the sales order. OzLINK will then run through that list, and for each order, it'll go back into QuickBooks and pull the shipment, the order information, the address, the item detail, and produce those labels. It can be a batch of labels. It could also be what we call our batch combo with a pack slip with the UPS label on the bottom. And then all the various business rules can be applied. Right now, Jason and I are working on a customer that does cheesecakes, and they want them ordered by flavor so that improves their pick process. Another one does furniture, similarly being able to order those so that their pick process in their warehouse is optimized so that all of those same pieces of furniture that get ordered for their sort of 250 orders a day are grouped together, streamlined. They know those weights in advance, so doing a batch process makes sense. They go pick the items. In that case, each item is its own shipment, so having those labels up front really streamlines that process. They're ordered in the optimized way to pick through the warehouse. They apply the label. They're ready to go for UPS for the pickup.
Brian, we got a quick question here. They're asking can they add return services label to the packing slip?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Well, there's a couple of scenarios for this branded pack slip. The simple example here, and the pack slip can be branded, with the customer's logo, a drop ship type, overstock or third-party customer drop ship scenario. Multiple templates can be also used, and we can trigger that based on the customer order. And then on the bottom, it could have an outbound label and a return label. We've also seen scenarios with an outbound label and a greeting or a note, maybe. So we have a customer, that John and Kira, that does gift baskets and chocolates. So sending things out for Valentine's Day or Christmas with a note can also go in that combo. So there's really quite a bit of flexibility with that.
I have another question, Brian. It comes in asking about trailing labels.
Yeah, so this particular example with the combo is printed on an 8.5 by 11 sheet with a peel-off stock. Another flavor of that, or another option, is what we call a trailing label combo. So that basically is you print out a pack slip on a ship label, and it's followed by the shipping labels with for that particular order. And the trade-offs are really based on, is there enough space on a label for the pack slip, what the information is required. If it's a compliant branded pack slip that's required for a retailer, for example, we do work for our customers where they're shipping on behalf of Groupon. Their vendor guide has an 8.5 by 11 pack slip that has to be included in each shipment. So those are the trade-offs, but there's a lot of options to be able to support different options.
All right, we've got another question in. When the tracking number is written back into QuickBooks, is the UPS tracking number hyperlinked so that the QuickBooks user can just click on it and it will be brought out to UPS.com tracking?
We write it back to the QuickBooks document, and so it shows up as a line as a standard process. We write it back to the QuickBooks document, and so typically that, based on QuickBooks, doesn't link out. When we do it to a field in an e-commerce platform like Magento or where they're expecting it as a tracking number, that would link out to the UPS site.
And we'll also have a demonstration on where the tracking number shows up on a sales order at the end of this webinar.
And then another example of an extension, and this is in some ways a fairly simple one, but it's quite common, is customers who want to send an email to their customer at real time at shipment. Maybe include a promotion QR code, or 10% off your next purchase. Include the tracking number, maybe include the item details depending on what they want to do, but being able to do that real time as part of the shipment. So we call that a branded email or a direct email extension. QuickBooks has all your information. WorldShip has the tracking number. As we're doing that integration, we simply add on an email template that the customer can control and send that out. And we have customers who have multiple different templates that they want to send based on order criteria. So again, there's a lot of options, and this can drive follow-on sales, can cut down on inbound calls of where's my order, where's my shipment, those sort of things. So, can dramatically improve customer service and loyalty.
A question came in, Brian, about this. How often or how frequently can they change the deals that they have coming through?
Yeah, so the way this works is there's a template that we work with the customer on, and we basically, that ends up being a Word document that we leverage that template. OzLINK then inserts the order details from QuickBooks, the tracking information from WorldShip. We send that email out. So the customer can really change that template anytime they want. We have customers who have deals that they're changing every week. There's a new deal. As long as they change out that template, just replace that file, update that file, so they can do that all on their own as frequently as they want. Adding new fields that might be added to QuickBooks, they would have to come back and work with OzLINK on that side. Now, with the expansion of e-commerce, we're seeing more and more QuickBooks customers where their customers are requiring them to generate an advance ship notice. So being able to notify, and then there's a couple of scenarios. One is they're shipping into their large retailer's warehouse, in which case they probably also need a UCC 128 label, or they may be drop shipping on behalf of the customer, where the label is not required, but they definitely need an ASN. They may also need a branded pack slip. And again, the details on an ASN, the requirements from an ASN, a lot of those details come from the ship station. So being able to capture things like the tracking number is critical. What items go in which box for the ASN, those details are done at that pack station. So without an integration, so OzLINK integrates that collection of that data and the generation of the ASN into that pack ship process. Without the OzLINK solution, the customer ends up having to go back in, write down on a piece of paper those details, go into the SPS EDI portal, type that information in. It causes delays. They potentially, if they do need the UCC 128 labels, they have to stage those boxes on the side, print those labels out separately, then match up those labels with the shipping labels, and it just becomes error-prone, slows down the fulfillment process, and if there's errors, there's chargeback. Sometimes we talk to customers where the chargeback was from the retailer was larger than the actual order value, which again, causes major issues. So this dramatically streamlines this process. In this case, the order comes from the retailer. SPS puts that into QuickBooks automatically the 850 purchase order comes in across their EDI network in the cloud into QuickBooks, creates a sales order, gets processed in the warehouse. OzLINK will create capture the information for the SN. OzLINK will generate the SN using the SPS API, and then update QuickBooks with the shipping information, and then the invoice will go back out through SPS automatically back to the retailer. So just dramatically improving those EDI orders. And they often tend to be a very large part of the business, and without sort of an automation process, they can take 10, 15 minutes sometimes per order. This is an example of a customer that recently implemented this. Omega Sea, they make the food for fish, and they sell to a lot of pet stores. and they got a big opportunity to supply PetSmart, and PetSmart had these EDI requirements. So as I highlighted earlier, the orders flow in with SPS Commerce into QuickBooks automatically. OzLINK is used to do the pack validation, capture the ASN details. They also are producing a UCC 128 label. In this case, they're actually shipping those out to all the various PetSmart stores. And for them, just simply handling that volume as that ramped up was not feasible with a solution that wasn't automated. These are some examples of the pack slips that we can generate. There's a set of templates we have. If there's new trading partners that you're dealing with or that your customer's dealing with, we can look at automating those. And again, we'll have customers who have 5 or 6 different trading partners they need to generate these from. By automating it based on an order attribute, often the bill to or a flag on that sales order, it really takes any error, any issues away from that shipping person trying to remember, is this should I put a Sears pack slip or a JCPenney pack slip? And putting that wrong order in there, wrong pack slip in there, can not only cause confusion for the end consumer, can really put your relationship with that large retailer at risk. Now we're going to do a demo, again, just highlighting some of these end-to-end scenarios, orders coming in from on a Magento site, flowing into QuickBooks, getting processed in WorldShip, and then updating the tracking back out to QuickBooks and to Magento. And Jason's going to step us through that.
So the customer would pull up the sales order. If they already know the sales order that they'd like to process, they could easily just type in the sales order number here. And in this case, I'm just going to type in 153. Hit enter. This will then populate. It's going to ask what is it, sales order, and what day it was on, and it'll be OK. And then it's going to give me the pack verification module. So as you can see here, the items that came through are actually the same ones that are over here. The quantities are listed here, and behind the pack verification module, those quantities are listed there. So as I go through this, what I can do is either scan or type in the actual item numbers. So in this particular case, I'm going to start with 123. But if I wanted to do, let's say I scanned 123 twice. What that's going to do, we're going to populate an error message saying that this item's already fulfilled and the item quantity has already been matched. We'll hit OK, and then we'll go on to the next item. Hit 456, we'll scan it, and it brings it down here. So as I'm going through this process, if you can see over here, we'll have the quantity and the scans for each of these particular items. Now, let's say I want to close this particular box out because the hockey stick wouldn't fit in with these other items. What I would do at this particular point is select whatever box type that they want to have, or the 2 items I've already scanned, and then I would close that particular box. Now it's asking me for the weight. I'll just enter the weight. If it's on a scale, you can just put it on the scale and get that weight from the scale as well. Hit OK. Now I have one more item left. If I was to click Done, it's going to tell me that there's still one more item that you need to scan and verify and pack away. So I'll hit No, and then I'll go ahead and click on 789, hit Add. Now I've got all the scanned items, everything's in. I'm going to go ahead and select my box, and I'm going to hit Close. And then I'll enter in the weight again. Now I'm going to click Done. Now in another process, we could have hit Pack Remaining if that's all. If there's only one item left, and it would have done the same exact thing. But I want to show the process here. Now I click Done. Now it's going to populate UPS WorldShip. It's going to bring over the associated information for this particular order. As you can see here down in the bottom, it's one package of 2. Each weighs 5 pounds, total shipment 10. Now all I have to do is hit Process Shipment, And at this particular time, what we're doing is we're printing off the UPS outbound label and also sending the ASN notification back to SBS on behalf of that training partner. As you can see here in regards to the tracking numbers, to that tracking number question earlier, these are just text so that you can copy and paste that into a web browser if you need to, or utilize ups.com.
And there's a question that came in relative to that, and I think you really answered it as part of the demo, but I want to make sure it's clear. The question is the ASN a live notification, or does that get triggered at the end of the day in WorldShip? And really, as that gets processed, ASN gets generated. In this case, OzLINK is calling out to the SBS API with the ASN information. Once the SBS gets it, it gets delivered to the retailer. And similarly, if a UCC 128 compliant label is required, that would get printed out at the same time as the WorldShip label. So both labels can be applied to the box. There's no staging area. There's no those orders, EDI orders, can get processed in the same ship station, the same shipping line as your other non-compliant orders. Thanks very much, Jason. So just to summarize, with QuickBooks, a lot of businesses start out as they're growing and expanding their channels, both from a SKU standpoint, their sales channels. It makes a lot of sense to extend those capabilities out to e-commerce, to shipping, really streamline that process. And a lot of our customers start with the most basic thing. And that could be with OzLINK Pro, simply integrating WorldShip with QuickBooks, maybe limited or no rules, adding e-commerce later, branded pack slips. It really comes down to what's the most painful part in the fulfillment process, and can it be automated to streamline, to save time, to cut down on errors, all those sort of things. And as we've highlighted quite a few times, the e-commerce is a huge growth opportunity for most of our customers, create additional complexity in the back, in the warehouse, whether that's ASNs, whether it's drop ship, whether it's labels, customer labels, third-party billing. There's just an endless set of options that, without automating, are prone to error and taking time and costs. And finally, in terms of QuickBooks, OzLINK does support. There's different editions of QuickBooks. Pro, Premium, Enterprise are all what's called desktop QuickBooks. We support all of those with all the capabilities you saw. A different architecture technology is QuickBooks POS, or point of sale. That's used in some of the customers you highlighted here, where they both have a physical retail store as well as an online presence. And then a very rapidly growing solution is QuickBooks Online. Some of the capabilities you have are limited for QuickBooks Online, and that's simply around some of the integration options for QuickBooks, and we just see a bigger base in the desktop. But QuickBooks Online is certainly an up-and-coming solution that we can integrate with as well.
Brian, I got a quick question from one of the viewers here. Do we integrate with Right Network?
Again, a good question. So Right Network is one of the top hosting providers of QuickBooks, and with QuickBooks Desktop, a lot of customers will say, I want to run it in the cloud, and Right Networks provides that service as a top provider, and we do work with Right Networks. They've reviewed OzLINK and approved that technology to integrate that QuickBooks in the cloud option with Enterprise, Pro, Premium, with WorldShip, which typically runs in the warehouse on a PC in the warehouse. And then some additional information if you need. We have a UPS-ready microsite, which has a number, highlights all the solutions, different comparison solutions, has a number of the case studies we've talked about. We also have a set of videos there, but on our YouTube channel, there's many videos. We try to keep them about 2 minutes long, so it doesn't take a ton of your time to just take a look and say, hey, is this going to solve my problem or not? And then we also have a SlideShare channel, which has case studies, brochures, any additional information. And if you Just to keep in touch, we have a LinkedIn group. That's a good way to see when there's upcoming webinars, if there's a new case study or a new video that might help a specific scenario that you might have.
And Brian, I have a question come in, and it's if the company has a customer requiring EDI, does Oz Development manage the complete project, including the EDI provider?
Again, a good question. So typically we'll work very closely with the EDI provider. We do a lot of joint projects with SPS Commerce. We don't usually provide the overall project management support for it. We provide sort of the solution where OzLINK fits. But I think if you look at the breadth of case studies, we are extremely responsive in supporting the customers and driving and making sure that they're successful. Any more questions? So, looks like that's it. Very good.
I think we're good.
Excellent.
Well, wait. We just had another one come in. With it says DIM pricing coming, did I see the DIMs transfer?
Let's see the DIMs. I guess I'm not quite sure of the question, but I know with some of the new pricing around dimensions, so OzLINK leverages the UPS API for the rating. So those rates are what's loaded on the UPS side. We also, on the shipping side, leverage WorldShip. So that's where there's not additional rating capability that we need to be compliant with. So those should be completely accurate with any rate change or changes, new service DIMs that are upcoming. So, okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Looks like another one came.
Yep. The box size you select when processing the package. Did the box size transfer over into WorldShip?
Yeah, so the box size dimension transfers over, and you can set that up. In this case, Jason had the pack station. We can set that up also based on business rules and those other things. Yep.
Yeah, we can provide full box logic automation. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time today.
Appreciate it. We understand everyone's busy. So again, thanks very much for the time. Great questions. Really enjoyed answering and sort of virtually talking to you all today. And keep abreast of other upcoming webinars. We try to do 1 or 2 a month on various topics. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, 508-366-1969, or you can send an email to sales@ozdevelopment.com. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you.